of the such as the Hadawindarunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And I should have mentioned that this is being recorded. We will be posting it on our YouTube channel as it is not being live streamed, so it will be posted in a few days. So I'm going to share my screen now. And start the presentation. Okay. Okay, so the agenda this evening, I'm going to have a general overview of budgets in general. We're going to cover some statistics and metrics. I'm going to give an overview of the reporting structure of the township because a lot of the general public may not be aware of how the township works. And then I'll dive into the 2022 budget in more detail. So in order to provide an interactive experience this evening, we are going to be doing some poll questions. So we're going to start with our first question. And again, we don't see any individual results. We just see the summary. So Caitlin, do you want to? Thank you. So how would you rate your understanding of the township's 2022 budget? So you should have the ability to put in your answer. And we'll just wait a few minutes for
Okay, Donna, I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay, good. Okay, so we have most people have a good understanding, and that's great. So the goal is by the evening, everyone should have an excellent understanding, is our hope. Okay. Okay, so the township budget is basically a cash-based budget. And things can get confusing because our financial reporting is an accrual-based budget. So if people are used to accounting in the real world, they're used to, amortization and depreciation. Our township does not really budget for that. The other thing that's different in a municipal budget is that capital is budgeted for as an expense, whereas obviously in most budgets it's not expensed in general accounting. So when we present the budget, we indicate estimated depreciation that is not recorded. However, our financial statements are prepared on an accrual basis. It can get quite complicated to understand the two different approaches. The budgeting process is probably the easiest one to understand because it's cash-based, and that's how most of us budget in our daily lives. The annual budget is very important as it provides a financial plan for the year, and it's also what the tax levy and ultimately property taxes are based on. And just another thing to clarify, oftentimes I think people confuse debt with deficits. Debt is not the same as a deficit. A municipality cannot run a deficit like other levels of government may be able to. And debt is just a loan, basically a long-term loan. We put notice for this meeting via print and social media, and we also conducted a budget survey this year. And with the budget survey, we received 158 responses. So we have another poll question, And this one might look familiar if anyone completed the budget engagement survey, because this was one of the questions. So how would you rate the value you are receiving in municipal services from your tax dollars? So your choices are excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll
Okay.
and share the results.
Okay, thank you. So we have some fair and poor, so we have to do a good job this evening to change your thoughts on that, hopefully. So the chart in front of you is what the budget survey results were. So for this question, 114 people answered it, and 64.03% provided a rating of fair or better. 18.42% or 21 people responded that they are receiving poor services, and 11.4 or 13 replied that the value is very poor, and 6.14 or 7 were undecided. So one of the reasons we started doing these budget open houses a few years ago is it was an opportunity to provide information with our residents and ratepayers, so they would have a better understanding of how their precious tax dollars are spent. And hopefully we can sway your opinion to a more positive one when it comes to allocation of resources. Another survey question was regarding paying for services. Of the 114 responses to this question, the majority ranked increased user fees as their first choice to fund services. The second most popular choice was to cut services to maintain the current level of taxes. It was interesting that two very different options, increase taxes to modernize and maintain services, was just about tied with the option to cut services to reduce taxes. Now, at the January admin meeting, Council did approve a user fee study that was made possible through a successful grant application to the province. And this correlates directly with the highest response on this question. So over the course of the year, staff will be bringing user fee adjustments to Council. Now, when asked where would you like more dollars spent, of the 114 responses received, the highest ranked service areas are infrastructure repairs and replacements and road maintenance. Now, this slide outlines relevant budget dates, and the budget process does take quite a few months. It starts in the fall. Capital budgets are developed first by directors and their teams. Then Treasury finances those capital projects. Then the operating budgets are completed. Some expenses are budgeted centrally, such as wages, benefits, insurance, and utilities, and other operating budgets are done at the department level. Once these draft budgets are all put together, there's meetings with the CAO, the treasurer, and directors. It's also important to note that once the budget is approved, staff monitor and report monthly to Council as to how the actuals are comparing to budget. Now, the presentation this evening is based on the figures Council were presented to on January 17th. They have not been changed from that date. Now, at the January 17th meeting, Council did ask staff to review the budget further with the goal of further reducing the levy requirement. That budget will be presented February 22nd, and I encourage everyone to check our website and social media on how to participate. And that meeting, being a Council meeting, will be live streamed. Now, this graphic does a really nice job of explaining how the two different budgets, operating and capital, work together. Within the operating budget, money is raised for reserve contributions. These reserve contributions are used to fund capital projects. Also, within the operating budget, we budget for debt payments because the actual debt is used to fund capital. So the operating budget covers the day-to-day operations of the township, things like staff salaries, materials for repairs, electricity, programming, and maintenance. The capital budget pertains to large-scale investments in tangible amenities, facilities, and infrastructure. Funding for the capital budget is drawn in part from tax revenues, along with reserves, debentures, and other funding sources such as grants. So when you think of capital, you can think of road resurfacing and replacements, new buildings, and construction of parks and amenities. Now, there's 3 departments that are funded 100% with user fees. That's the building department, the water department, and the wastewater department. Water and wastewater rates support expenditures totaling $4.4 million and includes transfers to reserves of just over $600,000. And that's used to fund major repairs and replacements of infrastructure. Also, the library budget is approved by the library board prior to being included in the township's overall budget. Another point is the cost related to repairing and maintaining equipment and vehicles, including reserve transfers, are budgeted centrally and then allocated to various departments. This chart breaks down taxes between the 3 taxing authorities: the township, the region, and education. When you receive a bill from West Lincoln, you're receiving a bill for all 3 entities. Staff further allocate the education taxes between the 4 public school boards within Niagara. Now, this breaks down the 2021 tax bill received by service area. We always include this with the final tax bill that is sent out to residents. The blue represents the region, the green is the West Lincoln Township, and red is education. You can see of the total tax bill, the largest amount is for police services, and the second amount is for education. Now, in 2021, we implemented new budgeting software that has a public-facing interactive module, which you're seeing right now. It's called Open Book. And there's some, you can access it through our website, and there's some neat features. So this feature here looks at your 2021 taxes. 2022 will be posted after the budget's actually approved. And for, every $100,000 of assessment, you can see what you're paying for every 100,000. And if you want to see it broken down in more detail, you can click and you can say, okay, of that, $26 goes to intercontrol.
Donna, we can't see Open Book on your screen.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, just give me some time to figure that out. If I try again. Do you see it now?
Looks good, Donna.
Okay. I don't know why it didn't flow perfectly. Okay, so this is accessible through the township's website. And right now we only have 2021 taxes there. Once the budget's approved, 2022 will appear. And as I had mentioned, you can toggle and see for every 100,000 of assessment, This tells you how much you're paying for transportation services. And then you could further break it down. So you could see winter control is $26. So it's just a different way of illustrating budget numbers, a little bit easier to understand, and you don't get lost in a load of paper. So I will try. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the PowerPoint, because I think that's the only way it's going to work. Okay, you see the PowerPoint now?
Looks good, Donna. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the next few charts provide some statistics to help understand West Lincoln in relation to some of its neighboring municipalities. So this chart takes a residential home in the urban area of West Lincoln with an average assessment of $386,000 in 2021. It then takes the same assessment value and calculates what property taxes would be in neighboring municipalities. We do this just to demonstrate how West Lincoln taxes compare to our neighbors. And you can see that we are the lowest. And I choose these municipalities because we have a very similar assessment base in terms of value for a residential home. And I don't include Wainfleet because they don't really have subdivisions like West Lincoln does. So it's hard to get that residential home value to be on par. So that's the reason these four are used. Now, usually during budget time and in the past, there would be some quite lively discussions about the state of our township roads. So this chart highlights the lack of density in West Lincoln, which means we have less households and less taxes to support our road requirements compared to our neighbors. West Lincoln is the largest size-wise municipality in Niagara. Now, this information is from the 2020 Financial Information Return. We also have the lowest levy collected, yet the most kilometers of roads to maintain and repair. So it can be challenging. You can see we have, on average, we have 813 kilometers of roads and only on average 7 households per each kilometer of road. This chart looks at how much levy is raised on a per capita basis, as well as on $100,000 of current value assessment. So on a per capita basis or per person basis, West Lincoln has the lowest levy, and per 100,000 of current value assessment, we're second lowest. And we're much lower than the Niagara average. This metric looks at affordability of property taxes. So it ranks West Lincoln taxes based on household income. In this category, West Lincoln is the second lowest. Then it takes property taxes and the cost of water, sewer as a percentage of household income. And in this category, West Lincoln is 5th lowest. Are there any questions at this point that anyone wants to ask? Anything, Caitlin? No?
No, appears to be nothing at the moment, Donna.
Okay. So now we're going to go into reporting structure of the township. When council gets the big budget package, the budget is categorized within by departments. And these slides are just going to go over how our departments are categorized at the township. So first we have general government, which includes council. We have a mayor and 6 council members. We also have a rep at the regional council. However, that is budgeted by the region, Niagara region, not by West Lincoln. Just about the election. The way we fund the election is every year we contribute to the election reserve so that in the year of the election, we have all the funds available to pay for the actual election. Now, corporate management is comprised of the offices of the CAO, the clerk, and the treasurer. Some of the services offered through corporate management include council and committee support, records management, insurance, payroll, information technology, property tax and utility billing, accounting, and budget management. So this is the office of the CAO. So you can see all the reports that go directly to our CAO, Bev Hendry. Then we have the organizational chart for the clerk's department. And throughout the presentation, there could be certain departments that you may not realize who's actually responsible for them. So in this case, the clerk's department, they oversee crossing guards. However, crossing guards are actually accounted for under transportation services. And that's done that way because the way we report is based on provincially defined standards. And this is the organizational chart for the Treasury Department. Now, protective services encompasses many different cost centers, as you can see, and they're quite varied. Fire and emergency services provide support for fire protection and enforcement, fire and safety public education, and emergency response. Also included under protection services is municipal law enforcement or bylaw enforcement, which is responsible for administrating and enforcement of all municipal bylaws. And building permanent inspections administer and enforce the Ontario Building Code and includes the carrying out of inspection, which also falls under protective services. This is the org chart for emergency services. Our emergency services is highly volunteer-based with a complement of 37 volunteers at Station 1 and 16 at Station 2. The 2022 budget does include a change to the complement at Station 2, increasing it by 4 to a complement of 20. Now, protected services includes building and bylaw, and these actually report to the Director of Planning. So they're under the Planning and Building Department. Transportation services is responsible for overseeing all the construction, operation, and maintenance of the road network. This includes sidewalks, streetlights, and roadside operations such as roadside mowing, weed control, tree planting, and removal. Also included is winter control. So the Public Works and Recreation Department, overseen by the Director of Public Works and Recreation, is responsible for transportation services, environmental services, recreation and facilities, and cemeteries. Now, as a reminder, wastewater and water, including bulk water, are all funded through user fees. The township pays the Niagara region for water and wastewater based on both actual flows, and they also pay fixed costs. Every 6 years, the township undertakes a study to complete a financial plan for the water wastewater system to ensure its sustainability and to determine rates. And the last one was completed in 2020. Cemetery falls under the heading of health services, and the township is responsible for the maintenance and operation of 20 cemeteries. Recreation and culture includes facilities, rec programming, parks, and libraries. The library actually reports to a library board, which approves the library annual budget. as one of its oversight responsibilities. Now, the org chart for Parks and Rec and Facilities was displayed under Transportation Services. So here I'll just share the library org chart. And we have 3 branches: Smithville, Wellandport, and Casterville. So planning and development is responsible for overseeing land use policy and functions, including policy development, such as the official plan and zoning bylaws. They take care of development planning and heritage. Now, municipal drains falls under this area, excuse me, for reporting purposes, but it is managed through the Office of the Director of Public Works and Rec. The organizational chart for planning was shared in an earlier slide. And for reporting purposes, the farmers market falls under planning and development. However, the Office of the CAO oversees this service. I hope those slides gave you a little bit of a basic understanding of the management structure of the township. Now I'm just going to delve into 2022 and how the budget looks and what the various impacts are. So assessment growth represents new assessment that came on the roll during the course of the year. It represents new builds, additions, or renovations where value has been added. For 2021, growth is 1.7% or $137,000. This means that the first $137,000 in a tax levy increase does not result in an actual increase in taxes paid. In West Lincoln, a 1% increase to the tax levy brings in $80,500. Now, in terms of average home, we're using $386,000. I know that seems low to people, given what homes are selling for, but you have to remember that's based on 2016 values. They have not been changed from that 2016 valuation. The province has deferred reassessment as a reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. And as such, for most property owners, if they've made no changes to their property, their 2022 assessment will be the same as their 2021 assessment. Now, in December 2019, Council approved a new corporate strategic plan for the township. And these are the main themes of that corporate strategic plan. And now whenever we have capital and special projects, we always tie them back into the strategic plan theme. So now I'm just going to talk in more detail about some of the items that have contributed to the levy increase for 2022. So there is a capital project to hardtop or pave Vaughan Road from Caister Gainsborough Town Line Road to Wellandport Road. It is a $1.3 million project, and it requires a debenture issuance of just under $960,000. The balance of the funding is from the road settlement agreement. We increased the budget by $80,000 in order to ensure that there's funds available to pay back the debenture. So that's why there's an increase of $80,000. Now, in order to ensure adequate funding for capital works and to meet the requirements of the reserve policy, there have been increases made to the transfer to various reserves. They net to $122,300. I'm just going to go over what some of those changes are. There's a $71,600 increase to the transfer to the equipment reserve, which is necessary to ensure adequate funding. The pressure on this reserve is attributable to the significant increase in the cost of rolling stock and equipment over the past few years. Staff is predicting that this reserve transfer will have to increase by about 10% each year over the foreseeable future. The planning reserve is increasing by 30,000 and the cemetery reserve transfer by 10,000. Both are reflective of the projects in the 10-year capital plan. The capital, facilities, and technology reserves are increasing by 34,000 to meet the minimum funding requirements outlined in the reserve policy. The fire reserve transfer is increasing by 19,000 to ensure adequate funding is available to repay the debenture that will be required for the Station 2 rebuild. Now, staff have been able to mitigate some of these increases by lowering the transfer to the winter control reserve by 42,300. We're able to do that because that reserve is now at the required balance. And that's a result of years of contributing to that reserve. Now, there are several departments that have compensation adjustments that are impacting the tax levy. Within corporate services, the annualization of the communication position, that's a part-time position, has a cost of 26,700. The asset management GIS coordinator position has been partially funded through their modernization grant and slowly brought onto the tax levy. Funding through the tax levy is now at 67%, resulting in an additional cost of 24,000. The park and rec departments have been impacted by the increase in minimum wage from $14.35 to $15. The Parks Department is also requesting additional part-time staffing hours, which is an increase of 1,280 hours. And the Rec Department is asking for more students for summer camp for a net cost of $6,900. This budget also includes $17,950 to increase the volunteer firefighter complement at Station 2 by 4. So the complement would go from 16 to 20. Finally, the library has requested a $2 an hour increase to public service assistants at a cost of $17,350. The insurance market continues to see rate pressures, and staff is projecting increases of about 18% with a cost of $46,800. These costs have been mitigated or lowered by using the insurance reserve. We're using $21,000 to help manage the impact to the tax levy. There are two items in the budget that further the township's asset management capacity. There's an increase of $25,000 towards road repair and maintenance, and just over $18,000 towards road condition assessments. This request from McNally House was presented to council in July 2021, and it was in the budget that council saw in January. However, it will not be appearing in the final budget that's going to be presented in February, as it did not attain council approval. Now, we are fortunate that we have an increase to our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund that we received from the province. The grant in 2022 will be $989,000 as opposed to $925,900 we received in 2021. Now, in terms of all the budget lines, other remaining budget lines, we really had a hard look at really all of them. And in many instances, we did not increase budget lines. We looked at the past 5 years of activity, and if it did not warrant an increase, we didn't increase it. So we did that in order to try to keep expenditure budgets as low as possible. And we're quite confident we'll be able to meet those targets. So having said that, what does the tax levy look like and the property tax increase? So the township will require a base tax levy of $8,512,170. And that represents a 3.98% increase after growth from 2021. We also have to increase the hospital levy by $50,500, which will have an $8.52 impact to the average homeowner. The urban service area charge levied in the urban area of Smithville will have a slight decrease to the average homeowner as a result of assessment growth within the urban core. Now, the region and education taxes are estimates. The education portion of taxes have not increased in many years. And the region passed their budget and approved a 2.87% levy increase. And for this example, we're using a 3% increase. So overall, staff is estimating an approximate 3% increase to the overall tax bill. So we have another poll question to make sure everybody's awake. So you have heard the factors that are contributing to the 3.98 increase to the municipal levy. And staff are projecting an overall tax increase of 3%. So the question is, do you feel that this rate should be lowered, raised, or kept the same? So the poll question is now up.
Okay, Donna, I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay, so quite varied. Half would like to see it kept the same, 38% lowered, and 13% raised. This is not scientific by any means. It's just nice to see what people are thinking. Okay. Now, the Township of West Lincoln has a urban area of Smithville, and there's a special area levy for that urban area in town. The levy represents the cost of providing streetlights and sidewalk services within the urban area of Smithville. In 2022, the total levy is budgeted at $192,840, a little bit of an increase over 2021. It results in an average tax of $76.85 paid in the urban area for a residential home, which represents a slight decrease of $2.41 from 2021. Are there any questions? I see that there's chats. Caitlin, anything in there?
No, Donna.
No, it's all good? Okay. Now, water and wastewater rates. We follow the advice of the water and wastewater rate study and financial plan that was approved in 2020. And we're recommending that rates increase by 5% on July 1st, except for the wastewater consumptive rate will increase by 2%. So as I mentioned earlier, the budget for water and wastewater does include a large transfer to reserves for future capital needs of the system. So for 2022, the average user would be paying approximately $98 a month for the provision of clean water. Now, a new levy was introduced in 2021 for funding the township share of the West Lincoln Hospital new build. The total cost of the project is estimated at $200 million, with the local municipalities of West Lincoln, Lincoln, and Grimsby responsible for $21,650,000. Now, provincial legislation mandates that local municipalities must contribute to hospitals. So based on 2021 household data, West Lincoln's share of this bill is estimated at 4.5 million approximately. And we'll probably have to make this contribution in 2024. In order to meet that funding goal, we do have 1.2 million in a hospital reserve, but we'll also need to issue a debenture to make up the difference. In order to make sure we have money to pay off that debenture, we have to raise we had to introduce a new hospital levy, and we have to raise funds within this levy. So you can see from the years 2022 to 2025, we're projecting an increase of just over 50,000 each year so that we can reach the goal of 277,000, which will give us sufficient funds in the tax base to pay off future debt. Now, this chart indicates the breakdown of the net expenditure budget by department. So net expenditure is about 10 million, and this is offset by other revenue of 1.6 million for a net budget of 8.5 million, which ties into the levy requirement. Again, this does not include expenditure for water or wastewater, as they are self-funding departments. So again, I'm just going to go to open book so you can see what's there for this area. Can you see open book, Caitlin?
No, Dawn, I think it's probably on your other screen or outside of your current screen share.
Okay. Let me just stop and go and figure it out. Better?
Looks good.
Better? Okay, good. So in open book, you can go to this visualization, and you can see this is the net expenditure budget. And if you can see it compares 2022 to 2021. You can click on an area. I did protective services. You could click again, and you can see wages and benefits and how one compares to the previous year. Okay, there's also another visualization that shows you total expenses. So this is without any revenue offsetting the expenses. So here you can see environmental services, which is water and wastewater and storm. And you can see the total cost of 4.5 million. You couldn't see it in the other visualization. So you can keep clicking and you can see how the budget is divvied up. Okay, so I'm going to stop that one and go back to the other one. Okay. Okay, and this is a summary of 2022 expenditure by department compared to the prior year. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about capital. For 2022, capital and special projects, the budget is 6.2 million, and it's comprised of 51 projects. And the bulk of the works are within the Transportation Services Department, this big green area. So again, I'm going to go to open book and show you what's there. Okay, so you can, there's a visualization here, 2022 capital projects. And this one's cool because there's maps. So if you hover over, you'll get an explanation of what the project is. And then if you click on the project or on the map, you'll get a detailed explanation of the project. And you'll also be able to see how it's funded. So you can see, 256,000 gas tax and 28,000 development charges. It's an easier way of looking at projects as opposed to going through paper if you don't like paper. So I encourage everyone to go into Open Book. It's a really awesome way to look at the projects plan for 2022. Now, this slide outlines the 2022 capital and special projects and how they're being funded. So you can see, reserves are used quite a bit, and also government transfers. We are very fortunate in 2022 because a grant that we've been receiving, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, or OSIF, we call it, has increased to 619,500 from 272,700. So it's allowed us to put in additional capital projects or to reduce, the township portion of the funding for these projects. And the province is really redesigning this grant. They're going to be relying a lot more on asset management to calculate what municipal entitlements are. They're going to be looking at replacement values. So it's a big change from how the province is looking at allocating grants to municipalities. And for 2022, staff is allocating these extra funds towards the Pearson Bridge project and towards the South Chippewa Road project. Now, this slide breaks down the 2022 capital by asset type, and the largest asset type is road infrastructure that has projects. Now, the next few slides are going to highlight all the 51 projects that are in the budget, and we like to categorize them by strategic plan theme. That way, we can see how we're working towards the strategic plan themes and goals that Council approved in 2019. So one of the themes is strong transportation connections. You can see we have quite a few projects in that category. Of course, we have, bridge projects, roads, and also a greater replacement. So that all falls under transportation connections. Another theme is strategic responsible growth. So this covers a lot of different projects. This is a study to look at inflow and infiltration of the wastewater system, which is, really key in making sure that we're being as efficient as possible in that service area. You can see that there's a lot of studies also, and also replacement of equipment. Now, community health and safety. The largest project here is additional funds for the replacement of Station 2. So that's a Station 2 fire hall. Given the, very large increase in construction costs, we are asking council for additional funds to complete that project. It was originally budgeted at 1.9 million, and the costs are closer to 2.7 million. Another theme is efficient, fiscally responsible operations. Local attractions. Again, these are all on Open Book as well with more detail. Also in the budget report that is on the website that council received, there's PDF copies of all the various explanations of all these projects as well. And support for business and employment opportunities for residents. Now, not only do staff do a capital budget for the current year, but when they're budgeting, they look at the 10-year horizon. So they're looking at trying to predict and trying to make plans for what the township will need to be spending over the next 10 years. And it's really important in order to do good planning You know, with all this detailed information, we're able to make better decisions about what we need to be setting aside for the future. So in the 10-year capital plan, it's just over $76 million of planned works. The bulk of the work is under road infrastructure, making up about 62% of the projects. Included in that number is 5.5 million of planned hard topping of gravel roads. So I'm just going to go to open book one last time. And also here we have the 10-year capital plan posted. Now for this visualization, you do have to toggle on the year you're interested in. It doesn't show all the years at once. You can go, let's say, to 2024, update year. You can see the plan is 13.5 million. If you want to delve in further, let's say you want to say, okay, what's in protection services? You can go to fire and you can see, oh, there's a fire pumper rescue truck planned at $60,000. So again, I encourage you to go and look at that visualization as well. Okay, now this represents the planned financing of the 10-year capital expenditures. Debenture financing will be required on an annual basis in order to complete all of the projects outlined in the plan. So you can see, you know, the top source of our funding is reserves, followed by debentures, and then user charges, which is typically development charges. Now, this chart is forecasting the debenture needs over the next 5 years for the township. So the anticipated debenture repayments are compared to the annual repayment limit. Now, the province sets a repayment limit, which is this orange line, of 25% of net revenues. However, our internal policy likes to see a limit of 10% of net revenues. You can see in the future, you know, if net revenues will need to increase in order to ensure our debenture costs are under that 10% threshold. And, you know, our limit is lower just to ensure we have, you know, a longer term sustainability and flexibility. And as part of the final budget approval, staff is required to give council analysis of the new debt, what the new debt will be on key financial indicators. So the debt that's projected in the 2022 budget. And in this analysis, just as background, assessment growth of 1% each year is being used. So we have our last poll question. So you've listened to the presentation, you've hung in there, and we have one final question to ask you. So now that you've seen the presentation, has your understanding of the township's 2022 budget improved?
Okay, Donna, I'm going to
Sure.
end the poll and share the results.
Okay, so good. For most of you, it's improved. And you know what? That's our goal, just so you can understand what really is a complicated matter a little bit easier. I mean, that's our goal. So that's awesome. So that's the end of the formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. And we're open for just discussion or questions, comments. Again, you can indicate in the chat area or you can raise your hand and Caitlin can unmute you if you have any questions. And I hope there's at least one. If you're shy to speak, you can just type your question or your comment. Nothing?
I'm not seeing anything right now, Donna.
No? Okay. Usually in person, we have a little bit more of a discussion, but you know, we don't have that many people on the call either. So that's probably part of it as well. So again, there's a budget meeting on February 22nd. So please, you know, make sure you either watch it through live streaming or you can ask the clerk's department to be an attendee similar to this evening. So you can hear what's going on. It's really important.
Donna, we just have one question.
Yeah.
How much did insurance go up by?
1 second. It went up a lot. We're projecting 18%. Yeah, and that's something that's happening within a lot of municipalities. It's just not our municipality. It's the way insurance companies look at municipalities. One thing, there's not a lot of players that will insure a municipality. So right there, there's less competition. So when there's less competition, prices go up. The other reason is, you know, there's been a lot of natural disasters, flooding. So they look at municipalities and they look at, even if it didn't hit our municipality, they look at the sector in general and they give it a level of risk, and it doesn't, you know, hold well for us. You know, we are bringing items to the attention of the province. There are some things they can do to perhaps make it a little bit better. And, you know, we're hopeful that maybe this is just a blimp and things will get better. And that's why I use some of the insurance reserve to help offset the increase. Because the increase is 46,800. So just over 0.5%, right, of the levy increase.
And Donna, just a follow-up to that. Is it recommended to look for either another insurance company or raise the deductible for a lower premium?
Okay, good question. So we do use a broker that goes to market. So they are looking at making sure we do get the best price. There's really only 2 or 3 players in that market though. So typically we've had the same insurer as we've had for a few years because they know our record and they do give us the best price. We will be looking at our deductible. We have a really low deductible and we're going to see if increasing it can help lower some of those costs. And, you know, there's new things municipalities have to insure against too. You know, now we have cyber threats that we never had before. So that's a new policy that municipalities pay for. So it's always changing. And you also have to think just replacement costs. You could imagine how much they've gone up. So we have this building, we have a fire hall. Insurance companies look and say, oh, wow, to replace that, it's gone up quite a bit compared to, you know, a few years ago. So again, that makes premiums increase. So, you know, some of us have seen that at our home, like at our own personal insurance that happens to. And you can just imagine in the municipal sector, it's compounded. That's good questions. And I didn't even pay Caitlin to say that. So if there aren't any further questions, I guess we can, everyone can get back to their exciting evenings. And again, this will be posted on our website and you can let people know it's there. And if you do have questions that you didn't feel comfortable asking, please reach out. You can call us or email us and we'll do our best to give you an answer. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Caitlin, for your help. I couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, I think so. Great presentation.
Okay, so thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. And we'll stop recording, Caitlin, I guess.